Variables are wonderful and they're part of every program. Probably the most common variables are the ones that hold numbers, ints and floats. There are a few things that we do with numerical variables all the time. We add one to them and subtract one from them, and we add, subtract, multiply, and divide other numbers along with them. Because these things are so common, they have their own special shorthand, which makes programs more compact, easier to write, and easier to debug. This shorthand is really terrific, and it's shared by almost all modern programming languages. To give you a flavor of the shorthand, suppose we're running a fruit stand, and we're tracking our inventory using a variable for each kind of fruit. So we have a variable for number of kumquats, and number of blueberries, and number of oranges, and number of apples. So one day we get in a new shipment with a new number of apples, and we want to add that to the current number of apples. So we might write a line like this. Number of apples equals number of apples plus number of new apples. Then we write dozens of more lines, lots more code. We have lots of graphics code for drawing pictures, and we try to run the program. This line will give us an error, and you're probably way ahead of me. You've seen what's wrong. The variable to the right of the equal sign is missing the letter B. So, okay, we go in and we type a B and we fix the error. But the problem here came because we were typing the word number of apples twice. And that's actually not necessary. What if we could do something like this? Number of apples increases by number of new apples. Then we only have to write number of apples once. And in fact, processing lets us do exactly this. Instead of writing increases by, we write plus equals. Now I know that looks weird, don't worry about it, that's what this whole video is about. But I want to give you a preview of where we're going and why it's so useful. In fact, if you only want to add 1 to number of apples, there is an even shorter shortcut. You just say number of apples plus plus. And that tells processing add 1 to this numerical variable. Here's something that we do in programming all the time. A equals B, followed by B equals B plus 1. All the time you're going to want to save the value of a variable and then increment that second variable. So A now holds the old value of B, and B is 1 larger than it was before. We do this so often, we can roll these two lines into one. We write A equals B plus plus, and a semicolon at the end. This line on the right in bold is exactly the same as the two lines on the left. They are identical in every way, but the one on the right requires a lot less typing. And it's also a lot easier to understand at a glance. You can look at it, and if you know what this plus plus thing is about, you know it means exactly what's on the left. Now, I know the plus plus looks a little weird. It's not like anything we've seen before, but that's the nature of this little shorthand. A good way to think of this when you see something like B++ is think of this the following way. You're telling processing, use the value of B in this line of code. Do everything you need to do, and when the line of code is finished and you're ready to move on to the next line, then add 1 to B. So the plus plus says, after everything else is finished, add 1. And of course, that's exactly what we're seeing on the left. We're saying A equals B. The assignment is done. And all that's left is to mop up by adding 1 to B. This is called post-increment. Post meaning after, increment meaning add 1. You can also do pre-increment. In that case, we're going to add 1 to B and then assign it to A. And we do that by writing plus plus B, where now the plus plus is in front of the B, and that tells processing, add 1 to B before you use it in the rest of this expression. Notice that there's no space between the plus plus and the B in either of these lines. It's all one thing. And of course, I'm just using the variable B. It could be plus plus number of apples, plus plus size of car, whatever your variable is named. Just as we can add 1 to a variable, we can also subtract 1. So these two lines, A equals B, followed by B equals B minus 1, are exactly the same as A equals B minus minus. Again, just like with B++, that says use B, do everything you're going to do, in this case, assign it to A, and now subtract 1 from it. Similarly, we could subtract 1 before we use it by writing minus minus b. And again, the line on the right is exactly the same as the 2 on the left. Now I know this notation looks a little bit weird and it will take a little bit of getting used to, but you're going to come to love it. Let me show you another way of thinking about it rather than just memorizing this pattern. I'll show you what happens graphically. So here's the layout I'm going to use. Assume that we want to say a equals b, and we're starting out with a having a value of 2 and b having a value of 3. Now these can be ints, they can be floats. I'm going to assume that they're ints just because I want to have something specific. So a is an integer value 2, b is an integer value 3. When processing executes a line like a equals b, it starts at the right-hand side of the equals sign and says, I'm going to do everything I need to do, and when I'm finished, I will assign the result to the variable on the left. So what's all the stuff it needs to do on the right? Well, it just needs to get the value b. So it takes the value of b and it puts it into a little intermediate placeholder, something we never even see, a little behind the scenes, intermediate temporary location that holds the value of b. So in this case, b is 3, so the little temporary thing has the value 3. Then it says, okay, I'm finished. What do I need to do? Oh, assign this to a. No problem. I just copy the little temporary variable into a, and here's the result. A now has the value of 3, and b is unchanged. Okay, great. Let's try this with a slightly more complicated expression, a equals b plus 1. Okay, we'll start just where we were before. A has the value 2, b has the value 3. It starts on the right-hand side. It says, what do I need? I need b. So it takes out b and it puts it in a little temporary place. What else do I need to do to b? Oh, I need b plus 1. So working with the little temporary thing, I will add 1. Now my little temporary guy can get copied into a, and I'm finished. So here you can see the advantage of using this little temporary thing. b is unchanged. We take b, we put it in a temporary place, we add 1 to it, and that goes into a. And the result is a is 4 and b is 3. So now let's use our shortcut. I'll use the first shortcut we saw, a equals b plus plus. Once again, a starts at 2, b starts at 3, and we remember that b plus plus says do everything you're going to do for this line and then add 1 to b. So let's go ahead and do everything. First we take b and we put it into the little temporary place. Nothing else has to happen to b right now, so we just copy the little temporary thing into a, and now we add 1 to b. So we go back to b, we add 1 to it, and we're finished. So this is the result of this expression. b is 4 and a is 3. A has taken on the value that b had when we started, and when we were all done, b had 1 added to it. Now let's try the other one, where we have the plus plus in front of the b. That says add 1 to b before you do anything else. So okay, a is 2, b is 3. The first thing we do is we add 1 to b. So we add 1. Now we copy b into its little temporary place. There's nothing left to be done. We copy the little temporary thing into a, and we're done. Notice that a now has the value 4, and b is 4. We added 1 to b before we did anything with it. All right, let's take a look at the same thing, but we're going to use minus minus. In this case, I'll start with a having a value 2 and b having a value of 4, just so I have a bigger number to play with. Now we remember minus minus is coming after the b. So we do everything we're going to do, and then when we're all finished, we mop up by subtracting 1 from b. So what has to be done here? Well, we copy b into the little temporary, we copy the temporary into a, then we go back to b, and we remove 1. We subtract 1 from b, and we're finished. Now a has the value 4, the value b had when we started, and b has the value 3, 1 less than the value b had when we started. Finally, we'll look at minus minus b. Remember that says subtract 1 from b before you do anything. So as before, we'll start out a is 2, b is 4. First thing we do is subtract 1 from b. So we take 1 out of b, we're done with that, and now we finish up in the usual way. Copy the current value of b into a little temporary variable, copy the temporary into a, and we are finished. So now a is 3, or 1 less than b was when we started, and b also is 3. These are the 4 shortcuts: minus, minus, and plus, plus before and after a variable. These don't extend to multiplication and division. There's no star star or slash slash. This is just for addition and subtraction. To summarize, here are the 4 shortcuts. A equals b plus plus is the same as a equals b, then add 1 to b. A equals plus plus b says add 1 to b, and then assign. Minus minus works the same way. If the minus minus comes after the b, that says first do the assignment, then subtract. If the minus minus comes before the b, that says subtract 1 from b, then assign. The plus plus and minus minus things always add or subtract 1. And it only works for numerical variables like integers and floats. Now, in all of these examples, I'm assigning into a, but we don't even have to do that. We could be more minimal. We can just write this. Each of these 4 lines is a completely valid line in processing. B++ is identical to b equals b plus 1. And b minus minus and minus minus b both subtract 1. So they both mean b equals b minus 1. And because we're not doing anything else with b, it doesn't matter if we put the minus minus in front of or after the variable name. So these 4 shortcuts, the pre and post versions of increment and decrement, are the first set of shortcuts that we're going to look at. They probably look a little weird, and they'll probably take you a little bit of getting used to, but they'll fall into place very quickly for you, and you're going to come to love them because they're easy to type and they're really easy to read. When you see a variable followed by plus plus, you know instantly that variable is having 1 added to it. And you don't even have to think about it. Your eyes just know what's going on. But suppose you don't want to add 1. Suppose you want to add 3. In the next video, we'll see a shortcut for that too.